welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Roxanne, aka The Tiny Taster, and today's recipe is a wonderful, beautiful beetroot and feta slider. Actually, that's incorrect. I switched it up a little. Originally, the recipe had feta. I didn't have it this time, so I replaced it with some paneer or cottage cheese, and believe me, it's just as great. Now, I'm not a big fan of beetroot, so I'm always trying to look at different recipes to make it more interesting, and I used to make these wonderful mini sliders. I mean, you can make it a nice big beetroot burger if you like, absolutely, but I just thought it's nicer to make small mini sliders, almost like a little tikki or a cutlet, but it's not an Indianized cutlet, but if you like, you can add spices if you want. Originally, I did this with feta cheese, which is beautiful, but in this lockdown, I just for the life of me could not get my hands on some. So I said, no worries, I'm gonna do this with paneer, and it was beautiful. As always, I'm gonna put a link in the description box which has my detailed blog post, and it may have variations and you can add things to it, and a little bit of ideas of how you could jazz it up if you wanted to, though I think it's pretty perfect just this way. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel, be a part of my little Tiny Taster family. You'll get all the updates on every recipe video that I put out, not to mention my travel videos once I start traveling again. If you haven't seen those, go back to the channel. There are a whole bunch of those. If you like this video, give it a big fat thumbs up. It always helps the channel, and leave me a comment. I always want to hear what you think, whether you liked it, didn't like it, what your thoughts are. So without further ado, let's get cooking.
You're going to need some chopped spring onions, you'll need some breadcrumbs and some crushed walnuts. I've used a mortar and pestle to crush this down into finer bits. You'll also need some paneer or feta cheese. Feta cheese, I think, has a more robust taste, but if you don't have that, then paneer is just fine. The star ingredient for this recipe is, of course, beetroot. I've just peeled them and cut them into small, manageable pieces. Add some oil to a pan and toss in all those chopped beetroots. Now this is going to take some time because you need to cook these beetroots for a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes, ideally 20 minutes, till they become completely soft and change color. The beauty of this dish is that the more you cook beetroots and the more they cook down, they tend to turn naturally sweet. So the flavor changes completely, but the trick is to keep cooking it till it completely breaks down and it releases all that natural sweetness. About halfway through the cooking process, you want to add in your spring onion whites along with a little bit of salt and pepper for seasoning. I don't add any more seasoning to this dish, but if you wanted to give it more spice or add a little bit of cumin, you could do so at this stage. If you were using feta cheese in this recipe, you really don't need any more seasoning. It's pretty heavy, but if you would like to, you can add so at this stage. As you mix it and cook, you can see it changing color and becoming lighter. Towards the end, I like to add in the greens of the spring onions. I don't add them earlier because I think they tend to get overcooked. So if you need to cook this for a total of 20 minutes, I would add this in the last, say, 1 minute or so. Once this mixture has cooked down, we need to cool it completely because after this, it's going to be blitzed in a blender and you cannot blitz it hot. I've repeated this 100 times in my previous videos. Just let it cool down to room temperature first. Add the mixture to your blender along with some of the chopped walnuts. If they're big bits, I would add those in first so that it grinds down. You don't want to grind it completely. It just needs a couple of whizzes in the grinder till it gets this sort of chunky consistency. You do not want to make a puree. Please do not overmix this. Now you just take the whole mixture and you empty it out. I've used the same pan just to avoid washing. I've added in the rest of the chopped walnuts along with the breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs is just for binding. Ideally, I don't like to add any carb, but you do need it in this recipe or it will completely break apart. Crush in some of your paneer. You can just tear it with your hands, just crumble it in and mix this all together. I like to add the paneer in bits because sometimes I feel like I don't need too much. You can decide how much you want. If you want a little bit less paneer and more beetroot, or you want more paneer to balance it out, you can do it however you like. But you just keep mixing it through, and then with clean hands, of course, form them into small round patties, or like we would call a tikki. Now the mixture already has breadcrumbs, which is a binder, so I don't think it needs like a coating, but in case you want, you can also just dab the tikkis in some of the breadcrumbs and give it like an outer coating. That's entirely up to you. I don't particularly like to do this. I just tested it out to see the difference. I prefer it without this coating, but you could do either. You could pop these in the refrigerator and cook them at a little later stage, or like I did, you could just directly add them to a pan with a shot of oil. It might seem like it's a lot of oil. It's not. I'm just using a non-stick so it flitters about, and this cooked up pretty much all the tikkis. Cook it for about 5 minutes on one side, and then ever so gently flip them over and cook it for another 5 minutes. Now these are very, very delicate sliders. They will crisp up on each side, but in order to flip them, you need to be very, very careful. If you've seen my previous video of my chole tikki chart, it's pretty much the same thing. I ever so gently, using 2 spatulas, carefully flip over the tikkis. I'm doing the same thing over here with these mini sliders. Of course, if you want, you can bake this in the oven as well, but I just feel like on the pan it's a lot faster, and it's pretty much the same thing. You can make them into bigger, larger sized patties, just like a burger patty. You could do either, whatever you like. Now you can eat these sliders in a little burger bun with some coleslaw, some lettuce, or I like to eat them as is. I don't like to serve it with any bread, but I do think they need some kind of side sauce. So I've just used some extra yogurt, hunkered actually, that I used with some garlic for my Turkish eggs recipe. I had a little bit extra, so I've just plated it up with that. It's got some garlic and some coriander, and I feel like it's the perfect sauce or side dish to go with it. You could serve it with this or with anything else that you like. I've left plenty of options in my blog post. Make sure to check that out as well. And that's pretty much it. Your little beetroot sliders are done. I do hope you've enjoyed this recipe. I hope it makes you look at beetroot in a very different way. It's not my favorite ingredient, but believe me, when I make it like this, especially with the feta cheese, oh my gosh, I just cannot get enough. I hope you've enjoyed this. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and of course leave me a comment because I always want to know what you guys think. Like this video, and I will see you in the next one.